This is an oral summary of the content of the 2014 FemNorthNet report entitled Developing Women Leaders in Northern Communities, a key resource for Northern economic development. The report documents our work to develop women's leadership in several Northern Canadian communities, the models that were used, what we learned, and what we think is needed to strengthen women's community leadership. It is an account of women's experiences of community as a result of economic restructuring and resource development. Who are we? The Feminist Northern Network, also known as FemNorthNet, is a network of Northern community leaders and researchers within and outside of universities and colleges from across Canada. FemNorthNet is based at the Canadian Research Institute for the Advancement of Women, CREA. FemNorthNet involves community organizations, local residents, local government officials, academic partners, and students. We are women and supporters of women. Together, we are exploring how economic change is affecting women in Northern communities. We are also trying to prepare women to address that change. Over the course of the past 2 years, our community partners engaged more than 450 women in 5 Northern communities in discussions and training to develop more local women leaders. FemNorthNet wants to see sustainable economic development in the North that addresses the needs of women and builds healthy communities, including addressing social issues such as poverty, violence, and housing. We recognize the diversity of women in the North, which includes Aboriginal women, women with disabilities, immigrant women, women with children, women of various ages, and women from different language groups. We want to know more about differences in experiences and opportunities among and between different groups of women, what we call an intersectional gendered analysis. We know that many factors affect women's experiences in these communities, so we use this approach to explore similarities and differences among and between groups of women. It reminds us that we each have different ways to understand who we are and where we come from. FemNorthNet also uses participatory action research to engage women in Northern communities with community leaders and scholars in searching for answers to questions about how Northern communities are changing and how women are affected. FemNorthNet seeks to empower women to create change, the type of change that benefits the people in the community who are often overlooked. What is the context of our work? Women are the givers and caretakers of life. It is women's traditional and unpaid work that often weaves and holds families and communities together. When family and community relations are strained, it is usually women who step in to mend the fraying social fabric. Across many cultures, in many settings, women play a vital role as community leaders. In Canada's North, there is rapidly increasing pressure for economic development around natural resources. Global demand for many natural resources is increasing, and Canada's North is considered rich due to its abundance of products such as wood, iron ore, uranium, nickel, oil, and natural gas. In addition, rivers themselves are in demand as the source of hydroelectric energy production. Governments and businesses are eager to exploit these resources for obvious reasons. It makes good business sense. Economic development is shrewdly promoted and readily embraced by those in power. How could Northern communities not benefit from this wave of prosperity? Certainly, Northern communities can benefit from some of the dividends of development. There is often a boom in infrastructure, such as schools, hospitals, and roads, and the creation of many new jobs sounds good. However, there are some negative effects of development, and downsides to some of the seemingly positive projections, particularly for local women. Economic development in Northern Canada is changing communities socially, economically, and culturally. The emphasis on the economic benefits has been big news, but the conversation about what this means for women in these communities should also be making headlines. The CREA fact sheet, Women in Restructuring, discusses how economic restructuring is transforming communities, cultures, and ways of living. The changes affect how individuals get an income, undertake family and household responsibilities, what resources are available to help, how they engage in their culture, their health and well-being, the natural environment, their capacity to make life decisions, and their sense of belonging. We know that restructuring has impacts that are often more intensely experienced by those who have been marginalized in Canadian society, as a result of gender, race, immigrant status, disability, or poverty. What questions did we ask? We wanted to know more about the impacts of the changes occurring in the North. Specifically, how do these economic developments affect women in Northern communities? What do women's experiences teach us about how to address economic restructuring and related community transformations? And what can women do to bring positive change to their Northern communities? Women are not one single group of people. Many factors influence a woman's identity, including where she lives, aboriginality, nationality, language, income, physical and mental abilities, age, immigrant status, and more. These factors interact to produce unique experiences and perspectives. These social categories can also influence whether we are respected and accepted by people who make important decisions that influence our lives and our communities. Listening to women's voices in their full diversity, paying attention to those who are most marginalized from the economic activity related to resource development, will contribute immensely to developing plans for healthy and sustainable communities. Women's business is everyone's business. What did we do? A 2-year grant from Status of Women Canada in March 2011 enabled us to support women in Northern communities to develop their leadership skills in order to be better equipped to deal with community changes. Our goals were to use different models for leadership development that suited each community, and to engage underrepresented women, particularly Aboriginal, disabled, immigrant, and young women. We worked in partnerships in 4 Northern communities: Happy Valley Goose Bay and Labrador West in Labrador, Thompson in Manitoba, and La Loche in Saskatchewan. In addition, we documented another leadership model practiced in Norway House, Manitoba. To achieve the goal of developing women's leadership skills, each community-based partner organization and university lead developed activities for women to gain knowledge, skills, and experience to be community-based leaders. Women leaders in local community partner organizations and external organizations worked with women to develop their leadership skills and confidence, to identify additional mentoring possibilities and future opportunities in community-based organizations. Training was a key component of the strategic actions taken to promote Northern women in community leadership. Women trained women in leadership and decision-making skills, including self-awareness and self-care for physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, understanding the economy through community changes over time, creating budgets, and developing job interview skills, creative storytelling and presentation skills, such as making shadow puppets, masks, or visual displays, creating scrapbooks, and doing digital storytelling, ways to create an inclusive environment, how to reach out and involve a diverse group of women, identifying barriers to participation and ways to overcome them, facilitating discussions once a diversity of women has gathered, drawing on other communities and external organizations for knowledge, support, and resources, identifying main community issues and action plans to start working towards solving these communal challenges, and finally, working individually and collectively to influence positive change in the community. A core value in the community models was that diversity among women within and across communities must be recognized and respected. Each community partnership was different, and what encouraged or enhanced leadership varied from woman to woman. Happy Valley Goose Bay had great success with engaging women using creative action circles, a contemporary facilitation process grounded in traditional Indigenous approach to working in communities. This creative action process empowered women to find relevance for their personal and cultural knowledge, and to develop skills with which they can inform and influence the decisions that are being made in and around their community. It attracted and built trust among and between the 3 different local Aboriginal groups, the Innu, Inuit, and Nanatu-Kavumiut, and a diverse group of non-Aboriginal women. Labrador West started by identifying and recruiting women leaders in local community organizations to participate as mentors in leadership development. Mentors agreed to work with leadership participants to develop their leadership skills, to provide them with a placement in their organizations where possible, and to support them in identifying additional opportunities for mentoring and practicing leadership within and beyond community-based organizations. Due to a variety of factors affecting participation, this model was not carried out to the extent that was hoped. Drawing on their wealth of women leaders and showing great adaptability, Labrador West created a series of leadership video interviews and transcripts. This empowerment-based model is already serving to further educate would-be women leaders about what other women leaders have experienced on their path so far, including what drew them to become leaders, what was difficult for them, and what has been supportive to them. Thompson drew on Aboriginal cultural traditions and knowledge in its community to develop its medicine wheel approach. The medicine wheel is generally represented by a circle divided in 4 directions, or 4 colors, representing parts of a complete whole. Thompson focused on the 4 parts of our whole being: emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual. Sessions explored self-care and respect, knowledge and practical skills like budgeting and job interview practice, how to make positive change, and identity. Related to identity was each woman knowing their story and developing a voice to share that story. This leadership training program introduced marginalized community women to empowerment and focused on youth, Aboriginal women, and elders. La Loche built on strong local Aboriginal cultural traditions and knowledge in its community and drew on a model called Project Venture for their activities to promote leadership skills through experiential activities that encourage critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Project Venture is based on 6 principles, or full value commitments, including be here, be safe, and care for yourself and others. A women's wellness group came together weekly around an activity, such as cooking, to talk to and to support each other. They identified the importance of having a safe circle, a place to talk about whatever they wanted to. La Loche Women's Forum tried to further engage women through community-based knowledge-gathering skills by collecting the stories of women in the village of La Loche. Young women students led the workshop, bringing women together and sharing stories and exploring their connections. In Norway House, we had the opportunity to video document another leadership model. Aboriginal women there organized a sharing circle that brought together women from many walks of life, of different ages, mothers, elders, youth, as a way to build sustainable leadership in women in this community. This is a model of peer mentoring, in this case, building on Aboriginal ceremonies and traditional teachings. As projects unfolded, community teams sometimes found themselves up against the stresses which women in leadership commonly face, specifically managing multiple responsibilities and working with limited resources available in their communities. The importance of spending more time on self-care was noted in a variety of ways by nearly all of the participants. Overall, women found that in coming together to share their experiences, they were able to learn from each other, build capacity, and build on their personal and collective strengths. What are the barriers to leadership by women? As a result of this work, we saw a greater community awareness of the issues affecting women and an understanding of the barriers to women's participation as leaders and decision-makers within their communities. The obstacles to engagement in leadership include women not seeing themselves as leaders or even as potential leaders. Many women do not have a history of being listened to and do not feel they can speak up. Many women feel invisible or feel that their needs or opinions are not valued in their community. Other obstacles included having very busy lives or not having the right to schedule time off work to attend training sessions or other activities. In our discussions, participants identified many barriers that were structural, in other words, conditions embedded in their northern communities. These structural barriers make it hard for many women to get involved and become engaged as community leaders. For example, the absence of public transportation makes it hard for many to attend events that may be a long distance from where they live, while buildings without wheelchair access and a shortage of support programs such as attendant care make it prohibitive for disabled women to participate. During our work together, we made an effort to enable women to participate by paying for childcare, providing a meal, and offering transportation. This was a start, but we know that some women were still excluded from participation. Even where supports are provided, such as childcare, transportation, food, translation, or disability accommodations, it is often still challenging to engage diverse women. Northern communities need resources, including human capacity as well as financial and other resources, to be able to take on and sustain the work of leadership development. Our Northern Community Partners resources are already stretched thin, dealing with the immediate needs in their communities. The needs are large in Northern communities, yet there are fewer people to do the work, and there is often no backup or relief person when someone needs to go on leave or attend to other responsibilities she may have. We also found that larger and more immediate community concerns sometimes overshadow setting longer-term goals or making strategic decisions. For example, conditions in Northern communities often make it difficult for women leaders to train and mentor others because they are so busy dealing with day-to-day needs. Across the Northern communities, urgent needs are drawing the available energy and capacity away from longer-term solutions and sustainable leadership capacity development. What supports the development of women leaders? Although the barriers to leadership for women in these Northern communities were significant, we also learned what does support women and how they see themselves positioned within the changes they are experiencing in their communities. Interaction and knowledge sharing between community leaders in FemNorthNet deepened their leadership abilities and understanding of how to develop concrete, practical solutions to address urgent needs in their Northern communities. For example, leaders in one community shared how they worked with other community leaders to establish a new daycare program and a transition home for women fleeing domestic abuse. Another community leader shared how she organized the community in a 10-year effort to create affordable housing units for women in need. The network structure itself provided tremendous support for many of the women and offered countless opportunities for co-learning. We learned that flexibility is critical. Sometimes women needed to deal with unanticipated issues and changing conditions in their roles as leaders, and we experienced this within our work too. Timelines, goals, and models were adapted or changed if they were not working. This project provided opportunities to meet in person within the network, to communicate regularly, and to reflect and evaluate. The ability to respond to changing needs and realities was critical to help everyone in the network get the most possible out of our work together. Through this work, community leaders gained understanding and capacity to promote women's leadership and mentor other women from diverse groups in their communities. We increased community discussions about women in leadership and inspired young women by engaging them with women leaders in action. We helped women who did not see themselves as leaders to start to recognize their leadership skills and potential. What happens next? Alternatives imagine and recreate a world where each individual, community, and culture is included and respected, where the earth and the environment are used in sustainable ways, where resources are shared equitably, and public supports and services are developed and provided for those who need them, where all are well and healthy, and where cultural practices are honored and diversity is nurtured. 2 years is not enough time, but much was accomplished. Many things were learned, and some seeds were sown, yet to germinate. We are hearing about the ways that women in Northern communities are connecting, from berry picking together to submitting proposals to get support for further work related to the restructuring issues in their communities. There is much more work to be done. There need to be ongoing programs of leadership development so women can develop skills, capacity, and confidence over time to take on leadership roles in community organizations. We hope this report will bring women's experiences and women's voices into the conversations that are occurring in the North and other places that are experiencing economic restructuring. We think that this report will inspire women in other communities by showing a commonality of context alongside a diversity of experience within which some practical examples of creative leadership training models are framed. We look forward to hearing about how these women are moving forward in new roles and using new skills. The future of their Northern communities is in their deeply caring and very capable hands. For more information on this report or other FemNorthNet initiatives, please visit www.criaw-icref.ca/FemNorthNet. The contributions of all of the individual participants and community partners are humbly acknowledged. We tried to represent the diversity of the voices and experiences of all these women in this report. CREA also acknowledges its presence and work in Indigenous territories and respectfully recognizes the legacy of colonization upon Indigenous peoples. The activities reported here were made possible by the financial support of Status of Women Canada, the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada, Honor the Earth Foundation, our university partners, as well as the paid and volunteer hours of many community partners and participants. To support the sharing of the work we did together, this report summary will be translated into French, Inuktitut, Inuaman, Cree, and Dene, bringing the relevance of this work into other settings where economic restructuring and resource-based economic development are occurring, and where other women may be having similar experiences to those in this report.